Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tyler Wright. Know most of you, but there's probably some that I don't know. Volunteer manager for PEI Soil and Crop, and also work with the Department of Agriculture as a soil and water engineer. To begin this afternoon, we have a panel here of some great folks with a lot of different viewpoints and experience from different sectors. And we're going to explore international markets for PEI products. So you often hear stories about farmers doing some amazing things, getting their products marketed. And we thought it might be nice to have a little discussion with some people that are involved in this. So we welcome Honourable Wayne Easter this afternoon, who will present opening remarks and act as the chair for the rest of the panel. So he will introduce the full panel. I won't today. Wayne served in Parliament for 28 years, serving in various roles ranging from Solicitor General of Canada in Chrétien's cabinet, Parliamentary Secretary for Agriculture and Agri-Food under Martin, and Finance Chair in his last 2 terms. More importantly, in my viewpoint, before entering politics, Wayne managed a dairy, hog, and grain farm. He was deeply engaged in the agricultural sector, holding leadership roles and serving as national president of the National Farmers Union for a decade. Wayne graduated from Nova Scotia Agricultural College in 1970 and received an honorary Doctor of Laws degree from the University of Prince Edward Island in 1988. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Wayne, and I get to enjoy the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. Graduated in 1970. That kind of makes me old, for Pete's sake. But all the young crews right here to my right. Well, look, thank you for the opportunity to chair what I think is a very important panel, and increasingly so in these times, exploring international markets for Prince Edward Island's agriculture products. I'll leave it up to the panelists to outline from their experiences the challenges they see in their several sectors in terms of working in the trade environment. I've been asked as a start to give an overview on the international trade stage. Now, how could you give an overview in this day and age? Because it might change in 6 hours. That's the kind of world that we're dealing with. But agriculture is the cornerstone of our island economy, and international markets now account for a significant share of PEI's total exports, with agriculture and agri-food exports surpassing $1 billion and reaching record levels in recent years. And the problem is today, as I said a moment ago, that there's very little security at the international trade level in these times. And so how do we manage in that kind of environment? And it doesn't have to be just agriculture trade itself, but there's other policy changes that happen that seriously affect our industry. And you can take the decision that was made at the federal level on Chinese electric vehicles, which was done in part, I believe, to appease President Trump south of the border, and it killed our canola industry just like that. The aluminum and steel tariffs that were put on, also as a result of the action of the United States, that impacts you in this room. And if you're Scott Kennedy at Kennedy Steel, how do you price your product in these kind of times? And that's the kind of environment that we find ourselves operating in. And pretty near every decision that's made on trade, it will affect the farm community, whether it's some of the inputs that you use in terms of your farm operation, whether it's building materials, whether it's equipment, or whether it's the actual commodity that you produce. Now, I will say this, The delegation with Kearney, Heath MacDonald, and Scott Moe attained the Chinese market back to a great extent, at least for the interim. And that makes a key point I want to make: the importance of agreements, of whatever type they may be. It may be a free trade agreement, it may be a memorandum of understanding, or it may even be just a kind of a personal relationship between leaders. But those agreements can make a huge difference in the planning that farmers and businesses have to do in terms of getting their product into the international arena. We also have to realize that even with signed trade agreements, non-tariff barriers can have serious impact and are on the rise. We see that especially with the European community. You know, that market's been supposedly opened up to us, but it's closed to many of our products because of non-tariff barriers. And sometimes it's our very own agencies, and I'll mention this a little bit, end up working against us. An example, CFIA and the way that they handled the potato wart issue. Now, I also want to point out, in fairness to CFIA, because I've worked with them over many years, when we have a producer who has a problem in a market over the quality of the product that may be sitting in the port, and they say, well, this doesn't meet the quality standards that we agreed to, CFA goes down, they sort it out, and they work in our interest. But they have to keep in mind, because I've fought this potato wart issue for several years, they have to keep in mind their work's supposed to be working in Canadian farmers and the Canadian public's interests. That is absolutely critical. And I want to give you, in case somebody's in the room, I want to just give you an example. I went down with Premier King and Blois Thompson and Greg Donald to actually led a delegation to Washington when this happened. And we're in Senator King's office, senator from Maine. And he's, because I chaired Canada US for many years, I knew him quite well, and I'd describe him this way: he's kind of a crusty old bastard is what he is. Anyway, he's sitting on his couch and we're sitting around, and we start, and he says, listen, there's no damn need of you guys, he slaps his hand on the desk, no damn need of you guys been in here, because there's no way we're buying PEI potatoes. And so the Premier said, well, why would that be? I got the evidence right here. Okay, well, and I said to him, well, can we see the evidence? And what it was the CFI gave him a sheet that shows potato wart. And the way we do it in this country is, okay, this field's got potato wart in it, this is a companion field, and this is a field that there may have been equipment moved to. Well, you would think a bomb, when you look at that map in little old PEI, you'd think a bomb went off. And in the United States, when they designate where they have a problem, they just show a little dot in the corner of a field. And so you can understand where he was coming from, because he's applying his ideas or US standards to what we do differently. But what bothered me about it was, number one, the chart should have been never given to him, but CFIA, or the government, I don't know which it was, had given their people in the United States that chart, and we hadn't even seen it. The Premier's office had never seen it. And so what I'm saying, if anybody happens to be here from CFIA, you're supposed to be working for us. You get the information from us, and you keep in mind who you're dealing with on the other side. Don't destroy us in an international market, but be there for us when we need you. So I just want to point that out, because that's what can happen. So where does all this leave us on international trade? Simply put, we're a trading nation, and the agriculture industry, both raw materials and value added, depend on trade in a big way. You need markets, and the best way to secure them is with trade agreements. Farm organizations need to push the political players at every level to secure reliable trade agreements. Where would we be right now, actually, if we didn't have the Canada-US agreement, which is a backstop for preventing Trump from going further than he already has? The last three prime ministers, Harper, Trudeau, and Carney, have all worked hard to establish trade agreements. And Carney, especially given the shock of the Trump administration, has traveled constantly to try and achieve better trade, and has done so with a Team Canada approach. Last week he was in India, Japan, and Australia. There's two trade bills in Parliament right now, one for Indonesia and the other dealing with Great Britain. And I know Dominic LeBlanc continues to try and deal with Ludnick and Greer on the US. And Dominic's a friend of mine. And if you want to talk about beating your head against the wall in terms of his job these days, that's what it's like. But key for you is what can you do as farmers in terms of international trade? I already said keep the pressure in the political sector in order to get the kind of trade agreements that you need, and also to assure that when you do establish a market, that the government is there to protect your interests. The federal government especially has an obligation. Keep in mind, and I'm not sure whether it was 2017, 2018, along there somewhere, the government of Canada asked the agricultural industry in this country to increase its exports by 50% by 2025. The agriculture industry met that target by 2024. So you're asked to increase your exports, then it's just right for you to ask the government to be there for when things go astray. So just a couple more points. There needs to be diversification of markets and buyers. The risk management tools to stabilize income, both domestically and on your international markets, need to be there for you. And I would make this point in terms of the quality of our products. Buyers value certainty of supply as much they do as price. On PEI, that means continued investment in storage, grading, food safety systems, and scheduling so that potatoes, grains, and other products arrive on spec, on time, every time. Key to that is ensuring at all the provincial levels that there's strengthened logistics in terms of infrastructure partnerships, meaning the Port of Halifax or other ports, whatever. Because when you produce, you know, you can produce the best product that there is. But what happens when it leaves your gate? You've got the trucking, you've got the transportation, you've got the port to go through, you've got the ship for the product to go on, you've got to come into the port at the other end. And there's a lot of fingers in that pie that are involved to make sure, to hopefully make sure, that the quality of the product is as good when it comes off that transport vessel, whatever it might be, as when it left your farm. And that's what's absolutely critical. So let me close with this and turn to the panel. You're a producer, and it's your product that's going to market. It needs to be a high-quality product. It may even be a niche market. But when it leaves your gate, there's a lot of other fingers touching that product. If it's going to a plant, say Atlantic Beef Plant, you need to ensure that you need to ensure that the value added is the kind of quality product, and the security of supply and the quantities that are needed are going into that market to retain it for the future. So I would conclude this way, that international trade is extremely important. It's extremely important to you. It's important to the country. And while you may produce it, others are involved throughout the food chain, through its entirety, and they're key to ensuring that the monies for that product that's sold in the international marketplace get back to your farm. And if things go astray, governments have to be there to support you. So with that, we'll turn to the panel. That's just kind of a general overview where I see things in trade. We'll start with Bruce Andrews. Bruce grew up on a mixed farm in Hunter River, which he currently owns with his brother. They cash crop 120 acres of soybeans, barley, and hay. Bruce has a BSc in agriculture from Dalhousie, it's really NSAC, and an EMBA from the Richard Ivey Business School at Western University. Over the last 32 years, Bruce has spent 10 years at Suregain doing sales, nutrition, and management, and 9 years in management with Cavendish Agri-Services. Bruce has been with Atlantic Beef Products and Albany PEI for over 10 years. His current role is the Vice President of Operations and Beef Procurement, and he will be transitioning to the role of President of Atlantic Beef Products Incorporated on the 29th of March. Bruce, the floor is yours.
So I don't know who I'll get to disappoint, but I was asked by a couple of panel members to set the bar low. So we'll see what we can achieve. Just quickly, we want to talk a little bit about Atlantic Beef Products and kind of our experience and what we go through as we have started to export product. We don't export to the U.S. really. We tried it a number of years ago. It wasn't really a fit for us for a number of reasons. But a couple of years ago, we got focused back into looking at exports, and we kind of came up with some criteria what we want to look at. So we'll start with our mission. Our mission is to produce high-quality products produced here in Atlantic Canada, and to have something, a plant that's sustainable for both the region and for the industry and for PEI. So if you're looking to export, what are you trying to achieve? You're trying to find a new customer for your products that will help support your prices in your existing markets. Are you finding new markets to facilitate future growth for your operation? Are you finding new markets that will place a higher value on certain products and over the domestic market than due to culture or supply or other reasons? And this is a big one for us because, you know, barley may be barley with a different variety and protein and different things like that, but a beef animal can be broken down a lot of ways. And what's got value here may be low, but it may be quite high in other parts of the world. Like, I imagine if I go to any of your houses, we're probably not going to see beef feet on the menu. If I go to, you know, not everybody's having tongues and liver and that, but these are premium products in other parts of the world. So that's part of what we're trying to do. So you want to know where you want to go and why. So we have kind of a criteria that we use. You know, we want countries that are politically on good terms with Canada. We explored China about 5 years ago. Russ was over 3 different times, and we came back the third time and said, you know, China's not a fit for us for a number of reasons. One of the big ones being that if you look at the big players in our market, JBS and Cargill, if they have containers or shiploads going to China and there's an issue, well, they'll be able to redirect it to their other sales offices all over the world. You know, having a container of potatoes or French fries going to China is one thing. Having a container of tenderloins and ribeyes is another when you look at the value of them. And it would be the thing that would crush our business if we ever got stuck with a political battle with product on the water. So again, we look at where the diet and cuisine it can create value for our products and get us a premium. And then we also look at, you know, how much do you have to export and what premium makes it worth your while. And I'll give you an example of if you're on your operation or in your business, you know, let's say you sell $100 million in sales. If you're going to export, say, 5% or $5 million, if it only gets you 1%, that's $50,000. To some, it seems like a lot, but if you start having to hire people or put resources to it, you have to say, is it really worth going after? So we do the math on this for ourselves and say, okay, we're not looking to just travel the world. We're looking at what's the opportunity of what we can do for our value of our business. So a couple of years ago, we went to Japan, FoodX Japan. So there's 250,000 people go through this show in 4 days. We started in, the show was the end of February, early March. We went in January, in December, we started talking to global trade affairs and the embassies. We started having meetings. We had a contact that knew the beef industry in Japan from a previous relationship years ago. And we started to leverage that. So Kenji's in the middle of Russ and I here. So he's a person that Russ had known for 40 years. It used to be a Japan delegate to buy Alberta beef 40 years ago. So we leveraged him and brought him on to help us. So we started setting up meetings in December, and all the trade commissioners all told us, Japan takes time. You need to build that market out. You're looking at probably 2 to 5 years before you're ever going to selling into the market, and are you committed to put in that kind of time? So we made the decision that we were. Japan's got a good relationship with PEI, Anna Green Gables, everything else, so it was a country that we knew, they know who we are to start with, so that makes it a little easier if they know where you are on the map. And we started, so we went through this show. We had pre-aligned meetings with 8 or 9 different companies, and then the rest of it was just a food show. So, you know, you got people there all the time, and you're trying to make good conversations. And when we evaluate things, rather than this is our display, so we flew product over, we got it through, we had farmer presentations showing how we feed our cattle just on the screen, that we're small family farms here, and trying to create that experience that we could talk to these people about. So, you know, it's surprising how far in will get you some days. There was embassy, there was trade commissioners, there was men, women, everybody wanted to try on the hats. So we took several with us. We left them all. Every time we go back, we take more. But it's how do you start a conversation with people and then start to weed them out. China or Japan, and that is big on, you know, recognition of figures and in their case, politicians and everything else. We happened to have this group coming in from Japan. Same flight that they were coming in on, Lawrence Macaulay was on it. We asked to get a picture with it. You know, things like that thrilled them. The fact that we took the time, we were able to get a hold of the agriculture minister right there in the airport and get a picture with them. You know, those things that you can do to help build your relationship and help show them what we can do. Then we had a number of them came over to the plant. So again, this is working with your industry partners. In our case, it's Canada Beef. So Canada Beef has a big, so when you look at checkoff dollars and everything else that the producers and everybody pays into, some of that money gets used to leverage to help fund these people to come here. It doesn't cover all the costs, but it helps make it easier to bring people in. So these people have been to the plant now twice. We were explaining our grades to them. We were taking them to the plant. We're showing them specs. We're talking about what we want to do. And when we go to a market to export, like we were in Mexico 2 weeks ago with the trade commissioner and the trade delegation that was down there. So just to give you an example of the last 2 weeks, we did 3 cities in 6 days. We did 20 meetings, business meetings. We got back on Monday of this week. We did 5 Zoom calls to expand our team, who was involved in the calls. We did 2 more again tomorrow. Next week, we have 5 more with those same people where we're going to do Zoom calls again, but now it's in the plant where we're showing them the specs, what we're going to cut to, what they want, what they're looking for, things like that. And when we're doing this whole process, it may be a little different than most people look at things, but it does. In our business, we look at things, get to the no as quick as you can. So if you know that this is not going to work, the faster you can get there, the better it is for everybody. So you start by putting onus back on them to reply, them to give you information on that, because if they don't follow up, then they just start to drop off the radar. So you start to filter things that way. So that's kind of the process we're going through. Again, you get them to the plant, you try and show them every you can. This is our first order going to Japan. So we called the trade commissioner. So the trade show was over on Thursday. We got home on Sunday. And the following Friday, we sold this load. They couldn't believe it. They called us and they said, there's no way you sold a load. You've only been at this 2 months. You've only been there for 5 days. But it was all that background work that we did and the relationships that we tried to build in beforehand. So this is our product going on the truck. Again, you can't ship pallets, so you have to hand bomb it. You have to do things like that. This is our product over there. So the next trade time we are back over there for a different reason, we got to see our product. So you're looking at all the big players, your Cargill, your JBS, your Nebraska Packers, Omaha, and all of them. And here you're seeing our product. So you can take a lot of pride in that once you finally get a sale through. Things that we are doing for them is working on specs. So we have the unique ability being a small plant, and to give people a perspective that are not in the beef industry, we're about the 6th or 7th largest federally inspected plant in the country. We're 1.5% of the production. We are a very small player in the market when it comes to that, but we're a very big player in this region. So things that we can do by being smaller, the big guys are not going to slow down their line speed. If they want this, no, this is what we have. But we have that ability to tailor it to them. So they wanted a specific cut, so we made a template for this particular cut, and it's exactly this by this. It fits into their machines better. It gets them a little better throughput, a little better efficiency. So what they're going to do with this here is, if you can see the little lines on it, that's finely sliced, basically like a beef bacon. It's off the bottom of the rib on the lower side. We would typically put that into a trim or going into grinds for hamburger. So what they do with that is they make hot pot soups. So it's a sliver, like a piece of bacon. It goes into it. They simmer it down. The fat renders down to give it the flavor. The little bit of meat that's left is the protein. And they said, well, you know, why would you do that? It's only like 40 grams a bowl or this and that. I said, yeah, but they make 200 million bowls a day. So you have to put things in perspective. This is them. So this is at their production facility. This is now, if you're in, we had the Canadian beef was over not long after we were there. They were there in the fall. We were in the spring. This cruise line carries our beef. So what they do is they do harbor cruises. Basically, you're going out for your dinner on the cruise. So that's in them. This is a promotion we did with a restaurant over there. We've done several with different restaurants where they were taking our beef, kind of shredding it, almost like a pulled pork. They're putting it into a sandwich. So they had incredible sales for the month, so that's something that they want to keep doing. We did a partnership with Red Lobster where we took PEI lobster and we took beef from PEI, and they did a promotion for a month in Red Lobster, Japan. So again, you're trying to find a niche. And one of the things that we try and create, even though we're the beef plant, we talk a lot about Food Island Partnership. We talk a lot about Canada's Food Island, things like that, because we're trying to sell an experience. We don't sell on price because we'll never win with the big guys. But if they can talk to their chefs, or if we can get their chefs into our plant or things like that, then we can talk about an experience that they can have dining. This is just a few more pictures on that. South Korea is a market that we're looking at as well. It's kind of similar to Japan. They have pretty good knowledge of PEI and a good relationship with Canada. One of the challenges we have there right now is that we thought we were getting close to having a deal, but China, because the U.S. can't get into China, so they're diverting a lot of product to South Korea for that. And the other thing we still have to deal with is Canada still has a tariff in the South Korean market till 2030, so we're still fighting an 8% tariff versus the U.S. shipping there. So we're dealing through that. Again, you translate everything, you do everything you can to make it that they're comfortable with it. We do presentations to them, that's their buying groups that they would have. This is the South Korean meat market. This is just everybody you're up against. And this is some of the products. So, I mean, this is Australian product in the market. So there's everybody in every global market that you're going after in our world. So you have to find that person that you can be different. Like when we're going and dealing with them, we said, you know, we're looking for that small to medium-sized business. We don't need the big, we're not looking for Walmart down there. We're not looking for, you know, the guy that's got all the restaurant chains. But if we can find people that are niches, that are looking to be fine dining, white tablecloth, high-end resorts, whatever that is, those are the ones we want to talk to, because they have an issue in that they're a small fish in a big pond when they deal with the other ones, but they can be a big fish in our pond if they want to partner with us. So that's kind of how we approach that with them. This is, again, the trip to Mexico that we just finished up. And again, we'll see where that goes, but so far it's got some merit to it. And just things to consider when you're looking to export. Do research on what and who you're competing against, and how is your value proposition going to generate interest in sales. Everybody wants to talk price, but you got to get to the person that wants to talk about something else, rather be a supply chain issue, a quality issue, or whatever. Do you have the resources and time to commit to building a long-term partnership in another country? It does take a lot of time. So in Japan, typically what we do is we alternate calls. We do 8 o'clock at night their time, and then we do 8 o'clock in the morning the next time, so we just rotate it through. Mexico's going to be next week 3 hours different, so 3 o'clock in the afternoon meetings there, or 6 o'clock in the evening meetings there, so you just have to make sure you're managing that. Utilize Canada's Embassy and Trade Commission services. You know, they're a huge asset to you if you get out there and get talking to them. You need to filter it in and dial down so you don't get too broad of a picture of the customer you're looking for, but they can do a lot to help you. Attend trade shows, better understand the market, what the buyers are, the competitors are. You know, you get shipping and logistical challenges Wayne brought up. You know, shipping time. When does ownership change hands? That's a big thing for us. Like, the container could be worth $200,000 or $300,000. Like, we want to know who owns it at what point and who's got the insurance on it. So in our particular case, it changes hands 7 days after it hits water, and then at that point they own it. But you have to have your insurance, your paperwork, and everything in place to go with that. Collection, Export Development Corporation is a good opportunity, because they'll help filter your customers that you're potentially selling to for credit checks and all that, and you can buy insurance to cover it. Foreign exchange is important. So, for example, in Mexico, we're talking to them down there about doing it all in Canadian, so we don't have to do the exchange from Mexico to the U.S. to us. Again, just to save where you can. And then investigate provincial and federal marketing development funding to, you know, how you can support inbound buyer missions or your travel somewhat. And then for those that in other businesses, just be careful of proprietary information on where you're going and things like that, because they all like to share when it gets down to it. So I think that's it for me. Thank you, Wayne.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce, and we'll go to questions when the three panelists are done. So next we have Neil Campbell. Neil has been in agriculture for the entire 40 years of his career. Neil had 18 years of experience in the feed mill business with Maple Leaf Foods, where he held positions in production management and procurement for Suregain Atlantic. The past 22 years in production sales and his current role of manager with the PEI Grain Elevator Corporation. He has taken risk management and executive agricultural development training, currently is sitting as vice chair for the Atlantic Grains Council, director of Grain Growers of Canada. He is a Soya Canada representative on Eastern Standards Boards for the Canadian Grain Commission. So, Neil, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. He didn't set the bar too low, did he? Holy smokes. I think I trained that thing. Holy smokes. You taught me. I know. He's 100% right. Export is about increasing the value of your products, developing relationships, shipping it, finding your niche in the market. A little bit different in the beef, grains and soybeans and canola is a little bit different, but there is specs and quality cells, and each country has a different set of phytosanitary and quality issues that you got to deal with. So we'll go through a few things here, and our chair mentioned infrastructure. All the trade in the world won't work unless we got infrastructure. Canada has a reputation of the best grains and oilseeds in the world. They always want our technology, they want our products, but we're not a reliable shipper. We have a hard time getting stuff on time, and that comes down to a lot of different factors. Sometimes infrastructure, sometimes too many strikes. So we always have a moving target. So we'll go through and see what we got. I apologize for anybody that doesn't recognize, they're too young to recognize that movie, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. This is part of the infrastructure part. So we don't put grain on planes, we don't have trains on PEI, and it's difficult to deal with CN to transload in New Brunswick or Nova Scotia to hit markets. I did do some oats this year down to Kentucky, but it costs an awful lot, and CN's not really interested in their employees getting dirty, so it's a problem. Trucks, here we go. This is the automobile part. Everything moves off the island by trucks. It's either bulk or by containers. In the grain industry, a lot of the new emerging markets that we're dealing with, especially in Southeast Asia, everything is a 20-foot container. They don't have the infrastructure for the big, long 40s. So it's a bit of an issue. So most of our stuff goes by bulk, and we also have vessels. We load in Summerside. We've done four boats in Summerside before, standalones going back to Quebec, but we've also do top-offs in Halifax. We put our beans in Halifax. The Panamaxes come out of Montreal. There's not enough water in the St. Lawrence, so they leave 10,000 off. They pull into Halifax. We drop 10,000 ton on, and then they go across to Europe or to Asia, wherever they want to go to. So it's a little bit of a different model, but we help them, and it helps us, and hopefully we could all get a decent price. So exporting has different things. We were talking here internationally, but as far as the grain elevator goes, 90% of my products leave the island, only 10%. And we have a lot of livestock here, but we also, for a small island, grow an awful lot of grains and oilseeds, probably more than Nova Scotia and New Brunswick together, I think. 30% of our products would go internationally, and 29% of that would go to Halifax. So markets and products, we go to the Caribbean. It's not too far down the seaboard. It's pretty straightforward. We go, those top-offs, they go to Europe, Spain, Barcelona, Ghent in Belgium. Everybody says, well, they don't take non-GMO, but they feed GMO to their cattle or livestock and whatnot. They just don't feed it to their people. Southeast Asia, that's a big one. We send a decent amount of stuff there. A lot of that stuff is container. And it comes back to the relationship part of markets. Find someone who is a seasoned, boots on the ground exporter, because if you get there, I can't always call Wayne and say, we got a problem, could you help me get this unloaded? You know, you have to have people that can actually deal with the issues on the ground. Otherwise, you have to fly over there yourself and you don't speak the language, nobody's gonna listen to you, you don't have the connections. So it's very important to have a very reliable and one that can actually pay his bills as well. So hard red spring wheat, we sell a lot of that to Vietnam by container. We kind of get locked into that market for a few years. There's something called thistle in Western Canada that showed up in Vietnam, and they shut the entire Canadian market down. We don't even have that thistle here in the east, but that's how trade works. Soft red winter wheat, we can move that down to the Caribbean. They use it in making the pastries that they use at some of the all-inclusive resorts that we go to. So, barley. Barley, working on a deal right now trying to get some containers into Turkey. Seems like an awful long way away, but our main competitor there is Australia, so it comes down to freight, and but you do have to have the quality to make it all work. Specs, quality is everything. Stuff has to be dry, has to be clean, and there's a lot of paperwork to fill out for sure. Soybeans goes to all those places, very versatile. You know, in the Maritimes, in the grains and oilseeds, we lack a lot of processing, and it's always been a bit of an issue, so that's why we have this exporting, to get rid of the stuff that we can't feed ourselves. Port of Halifax, the infrastructure function. I don't know. This thing will highlight it as we go. There's the Halifax grain elevator. It's all lit up there, holds 140,000 metric ton of product. Same ones that they have in Owen Sound, Ontario, same ones they have in the Port of Vancouver. They're all built in 1925, so they are aged. This one probably hasn't been kept up as well as the ones in Vancouver, and that's because it's not used as much. So that line that just went down there, that's the export gallery. That's how we go down and load onto the ship. This little, if this is gonna work, this little thing here, that's the flour mill. That's the Parrish and Heibecker flour mill, and when a boat pulls in there, they unload through that export channel back into the Halifax elevator, and it stores there, and then they bring it across on the little direct conveyor belt, and that's how they get their product there. So the Port Authority, in its wisdom and its 50-year plan, says we need to increase capacity and we want to put all our eggs in the one basket of containers. So they propose to fill this waterway in, and they call them fingers. I'm not sure why, but it looks like one. And then they're going to fill in the next one. And then the one after that, in the end of 27, is the last one, and that's the last one that the flour mill will be able to bring in a boat from Thunder Bay. And it's just going to be paved solid, and they're just going to use it for storing containers. The funny thing about their 50-year plan is they lost 20% of the business because the Port of St. John invested a lot of money in their port, and a lot of traffic went that way. So we've been lobbying a lot of people and having a lot of conversations at high levels. Obviously, we use Halifax as a surplus storage when we have big crops, like this year. We had record yields of winter wheat and barley, so we use it as storage. And the flour mill is a market that we don't want to use when it comes down to food security, which our current government is talking a lot about. That's the only flour mill left in Eastern Canada. After that, our flour is coming from Ontario, so our costs will go up, and food security would be compromised for sure. So there's a picture of us unloading soybeans in Summerside back in 2016, 17, and 18. 4 boats, and that's when Mr. Trump was in first and really ticked off China, and we are the recipient. We could load and haul back to Quebec, still make money, and we were still a least cost producer and able to hit that market. Not quite the same these today, but that's kind of my thought. We'll move on to Krista.
Thank you, Neil. We'll go to questions, as I said earlier, after Krista. So, Krista Shaw is Director of Stakeholder Relations with the Prince Edward Island Potato Board. Krista, has over 22 years of leadership experience, holding roles as Assistant Deputy Minister, Executive Director, and Director in both government and non-governmental organizations. Krista holds a bachelor's degree as well as a master's degree in work organization and leadership, and is currently completing her Certified International Trade Professional designation. Krista lives in Stanhope with her husband Stephen and their son Jack, who looks forward to becoming the firm's 9th generation steward. That's quite something, 9th generation. Krista, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me. So, just as my counterpart said, there's a couple of advantages, and I'll just talk about that first before I start, for PEI potatoes especially when it comes to export. One is our port access. We're able to ship, whereas other major potato producing provinces in Canada don't have access to that or can't economically get their product to a port. We have quality, world-renowned product. We have an excellent export talent here. We have a lot of exporters, we have growers, we have transport industry professionals that know how to get the product to market in top quality form. We also have a couple of disadvantages, unfortunately. PEI is quite market dependent. We can gain a market really quickly, but we can also lose it really quickly as well. And in potatoes, that's a difficult thing to do when you're planting for a market and then all of a sudden it's gone. We're not the only gig in town. You'll see on one of my slides coming up, Canada ranks 11th in potato production worldwide, and China and India are actually the top 2 producers. They do it in large scale, and they do it much cheaper than we can do. And unfortunately, potatoes come with a regulatory burden as they're grown in soil, and many of you know this. So sometimes that can make life difficult when you're trying to break into a new market. So our industry here in PEI is comprised mostly of family farms, and we have about 165 right now. The potato industry, now this analysis was done in 2020, and we're currently working on a new updated one. So in 2020, the potato industry contributed over $1.3 billion annually to the economy of Prince Edward Island. Right now, we're assuming that may be pushing at or a little above $2 billion. And the industry here, we have about 87,000 acres in production. Of course, that's rotated with grains, oilseeds, and other forage crops. And that leads to about 2.5 billion pounds of potatoes a year. And to put that in perspective, if people eat roughly 100 pounds of potatoes a year, that's feeding 25 million people. We don't quite have that in PEI, so we have a lot of potatoes that can be up for grabs. PEI is the leading potato producing province in Canada, as well as the largest exporter of potatoes in Canada. And in 2024, our international sales reached $1 billion. And there's that chart. And some of those countries may surprise you a little bit. You know, with China at 24, almost 25%, and Canada sitting with all of our acres in potatoes at just over 1.5%. For potatoes, right now they're known as a nutritional powerhouse. We've got a lot of countries with booming populations, and they're trying to find a good quality food that they can feed their people for in an economical manner, I guess you would say. When it comes to processing, we have a number of increasing markets in Asia, Africa, and South America. There's a rise in snack food and convenient food production. And as everyone across the globe is facing climate change, interruptions to weather patterns, it makes growing quality potatoes in certain countries more difficult when you're using them for either French fry or potato chip production. So how do we find new markets? We can go anywhere that someone eats a potato. Well, we'd like to think that. Au contraire, as the person that sits in the export chair at the potato board. But all you need is either an expression of interest from the country or a desire from this country to go into a new market and look to see if there's a bit of a trading relationship you can expand on there. So for instance, I was on the mission with Bruce and the Team Canada Trade mission down to Mexico. Mexico is a market that we're actively exploring. We've been working on this for just about a year now. It originally was a door shut, slammed shut. They do grow potatoes there, however, they don't grow russet potatoes. And US is in, and Canada is in the very small top 26 kilometer border range, but we can't get anything into the country. Port to port would make more sense for us. We can't access that 26 kilometers based on transportation logistics when you're taking them in via truck. And so it's a give and take situation. The US get in that market because they needed their avocados into the US. And the US said, we're only taking your avocados if you take our potatoes. So that's how you can sometimes get a negotiation started. Also good to look at countries that have existing trade agreements. So I sit on a number of tables right now. We just wrapped up Indonesia, and I happen to be on that trade mission as well. And Philippines is actively being worked on now, as well as Thailand. The ASEAN market is becoming increasingly popular for Canadian products. So a lot of work and time and energy is going into those markets as well. And the CPTPP is another one. There's 12 countries right now. We're working on entering Costa Rica, and next in line is Uruguay. Another thing to look at is a little dodgy, but I don't mind. It's looking at your countries that other competitors are already serving. If there's a reason the US is in a market, there may be a reason we could be in a market. So that's always good to look at where your competitors are putting their product. And then trade missions, as been mentioned. There are some other considerations outside of just picking a country. You have to make sure the country meets your ethical standards, that you can ensure the country will follow the laws of not only their country, but any import or export laws that we need to adhere to here in Canada, and that they can actually pay for their shipments. Corruption is something that need to really be on alert for as well. Also have to check out the transport routes. Not every country is going to match up when it comes to the logistical side of things. And then reach out to CFIA to determine if market access exists. So if yes, carry on, you're off to the races, start your business dealings. But if no, you're going to have to request that Market Access Secretariat open a file. Market Access Secretariat is composed of Global Affairs Canada, AAFC, and sometimes CFIA agents. They work to determine what the probability of entering a market may be, and they'll come back with sometimes some pretty big barriers as to why we shouldn't go in a market. They told me when I asked about Mexico that we'll never get in there, it'll take too long, and they kill people in Mexico over potatoes. And we've got our toe on the line of crossing into that market right now. It's always a good idea, as mentioned before as well, to meet with Global Affairs Canada, AAFC, and CFIA, not just outside that Market Access Secretariat as well, but they have to understand the value and potential for your commodity and why you think that market's a good idea. And you can also request an import permit from the country that is seeking your product. If it's a market that you're really requiring a lot of regulatory assistance, so in most countries when it comes to potatoes, we need to do a pest risk analysis. You'll be looking at some phytosanitary issues. You really need to work with your CFIA agents so that they truly understand your product and in and out. They can't explain it if they don't know what's on offer. Advocate and lobby with all the government agencies here, both here in Canada and in the target market. We've worked very hard in Mexico with trade officials, global affairs people, so that they understand and trust. And the final one I have is kind of a things to remember. Be patient, but be persistent. If you don't follow up, if you don't keep your business or your product or your company on people's front of mind, they're not going to take the time to follow up with you. Use all your available resources, that's already been mentioned. Maintain contact with your buyer or buyers. Foster relationships. I can't stress that one enough. We've worked with a number of folks in Indonesia and the Philippines as well. In the Asian culture, relationships are important, and face-to-face is important. It's more than just picking up a call. We went over there, we went to their farms, we had them here. That is how you move ahead in those, that's trust. They need to trust. And that trust does take time to build. Understand your market and understand the market, do your homework. Make your product work for you as well as them. Pitch an angle, just as you folks were talking about too, Anna Green Gables. Use any tools in the toolbox that's going to take you one step ahead. And always remember the devil's in the details. This is just a short video that'll sum it up.
Potato farming is deeply rooted in the history and culture of Prince Edward Island. Some of the island's earliest settlers pioneered the cultivation of potatoes in Canada. After more than 2 centuries, island potato farmers continue to demonstrate the same pride, respect for the earth, and commitment to family tradition as their ancestors, always finding new ways to improve. All potato growers share a special bond with the island soil. Many have grown up on the land they continue to farm and pass the land on to their children. 96% of PEI potato farms are family-owned, and that tradition isn't expected to change anytime soon. PEI may be Canada's smallest province, but it is the largest producer of potatoes in the country. There's something special about our million-acre farm, and there's certainly something special about the people who care for it. Together, we're growing the world's best potatoes. It takes an island, Canada's food island, PEI potatoes.
And that's just, actually, there's one little celebrity from that video I just saw in the corner over there. But that speaks to Bruce's point as well. Use Canada's food island, make a statement, make it a bigger picture thing. It's not just one small commodity. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. Thanks, all three. There's a mic back here and a mic there in the center. Is there any questions? We got about 10 minutes. Go ahead. Oh, I thought you were going to ask a question.
No, I'm the transporter of the mic.
All right. Who wants to? Any hands up? One right here.
Test it. Yep. This is probably directed more to Neil, and as a grain grower on the island myself, just curious on what the plan would be for after Halifax is infilled, and maybe we don't have that export infrastructure in place that we talked about. It's so important.
Is this on?
Go ahead, Neil. Yeah, it's on.
Yeah, so we've been working with Halifax Grain Elevator and lobbying through the Atlantic Grains Council. We've had some pretty high-level talks with politicians with varying success. Halifax is probably going to get an extension on 2 years on their lease. I think the flour mill's got a 3-year extension. So there's a lot of things that have to happen. Obviously, if Halifax isn't there, we're going to have to look seriously at what we're going to have to do here on the island type of thing to offset it, because storage would be the number one thing. Shipping is afterwards, but you got to be able to store the crop first, and you got to be able to store it properly, right?
Anybody else?
We'd like another 20,000 head of beef, so if you want to feed it, that's okay too.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. The ostriches. Big Pharma run all over the Canadian Inspection Agency, and the government let them do it. Big Pharma didn't like what they were doing with the eggs, so they took that route. But anyway, they run all over you. Then another thing, half of the egg stations are closing in Canada. What's going on there?
I'm just chairing, Brian. I haven't been involved in that issue, although I talked on the oyster farm. The big thing I will say in terms of ostriches and anything else in terms of CFA, they have a duty to protect the other industries in the country, and they were following the rules under that. I think it could have happened a little differently than it did, but they have an obligation under the laws to protect other commodities from bird flu, et cetera, and that's what they've done at the end of the day. A lot of publicity around it, I'll admit. Anybody else got any questions? I'm not there, Brian, anymore. Any other questions? No, they didn't. Anybody else? Stewart, you get your hand up? Oh, Robert's at the mic. Go ahead, Robert.
Hi. Neil, just for the crowd's information, I'm on the board with you, but I think it'd be good for people to understand the capacity we have here on PEI in the elevator system, what you marketed this past year, and what we're going to need going forward in terms of, restructuring some of the, or replacing some of the structures that we have in place now. I think it'd be good for people to get a feel for that.
Thanks for that. Well, obviously, the obvious thing is that wooden elevator in Kensington would be an obvious thing to be replaced. But if Halifax is there for the next 2 years, we're fine for harvest. But we are short capacity. The elevator system so far has already handled 76,000 metric ton this year. We can only hold 40, maybe 42. So we already are under capacity, and we were 12,000 metric tons short on soybeans this year because of the drought. So we'd be around 90,000 metric ton if the soybean crop had been as robust as normal. So capacity is an issue. Halifax is definitely our outlet, and it's the easiest way to move product the fastest. Certainly some conversations with the federal government about if they're not going to invest money back into the Halifax elevator and they're bound and determined to tear it down, what are you going to do for us? But they have a private company they got to deal with, and they also have the forestry pelleting company in Middle Musquodoboit they got to deal with. So all three of us use that elevator, and if they're not going to operate it, all three of us are in trouble, and there's a lot of jobs involved there, and there's a lot of GDP in Nova Scotia and PEI involved there. So that's kind of where we're at, and if they're going to replace it, I'm wide open to suggestions for sure.
Yeah, and you mentioned GDP. It just came to my head there now too. Like, I think it's important for people to understand in PEI, every load of grain that goes to Halifax, they get the GDP credit for that. We don't. Am I
Yeah,
correct?
that's correct. So the port of origin gets credit with the federal government as to who's the exporter. So PEI really shows up as not exporting any soybeans or any wheat. It goes to Nova Scotia because it's their terminal.
Just a suggestion, Neil, I think it's something that you could get the Council of Maritime Premiers on in terms of economic development of the Maritimes as a whole. That's an important factor, so see if you can get the issue on their agenda. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Great presentations from all the panelists. My question is to Bruce, but I do want to call out Krista in a good way, the PEI Potato Board. Branding is so critical for Canadian food products, and the board has done an incredible job of creating a logo that's visible not only in our country but internationally. Atlantic beef, is there any thoughts of, I realize we source beef from the island, from New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and when we're desperate, Quebec. But what about the Atlantic beef logo and a little more Canadianism on that logo?
Bruce.
Yeah, so a couple things. I guess to start with, whenever you're exporting beef, it's pretty common for all of the packers in Canada that we start with Canada beef as being the logo that goes with it for numerous reasons, marketing, QR codes, references, recipes, all that stuff. From the branding side of it at the plant, we take it a little bit more to a micro level, I guess. You know, when we're talking to Japan, South Korea, or even Mexico last week, you know, we have a couple of brands ourselves, like Blue Dot, which is a high-end marbled product. We're really trying to promote down in Mexico is the Certified Island Beef brand, which is in conjunction with Food Island Partnership and us. It's a no-hormone beef where the producers all have to sign affidavits, things like that. So we're trying to create value for that. And the big reason behind that as well is that those animals have to be finished on PEI. So it helps elevate them as well. But most of the branding after that goes through the plant. So we have True Beef. We have 4 or 5 brands now that we try and market under, rather it be Island View Farms at Sobeys on PEI or True Beef that you can get at Gateway or Dolma or one of those. So we do try and do branding that way for differentiating from ourselves. But on the export side of it, one of the things we're trying to move is the Certified Island Beef brand and trying to get a premium and be different with the no hormone program.
Okay, thank you. I see no further questions. Is there anything either Krista or Neil or Bruce wants to add to sum up? Okay, I think we've had a very interesting panel, and it's a very important topic in terms of enhancing both Prince Edward Island and Canadian economies in terms of international markets for agriculture. So thank you all.